All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome back, everyone, or welcome for first timers to our monthly community call. For those of you who may remember our past calls, used to be more of a YouTube type live stream where Jeremy and a guest, sometimes myself, would be on, and we just kind of have a conversation back and forth. Our new format here, we'd like it to be a bit more collaborative, welcoming for the community. So if you do have a camera out there, this is the wrong date on, no, that's the right date on there. Go ahead and flip your webcam on if you don't mind, if you're in a position to. Love to see faces out there. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them up in chat. We're going to have a few presentations today. Typically at the end of those presentations, we have a little time for some Q&A. The Q&A, if it runs a little over, we can save that for the end as well. After we get through the thank yous, we generally open it up for just those Q&As conversation. Try to keep the meeting to about an hour. At the end, once we've wrapped up, we'll go into an open discussion. And generally, that's where we're just turning off the recording and making it more of just a conversation back and forth between our participants in the community. So with that out of the way, let's get into our community news for the month. I think we're going to have Mark Coleman on to give us an update for the upcoming NetDevOps Days. Mark, are you out there?
Jordan, Mark got pulled into a call, so he's going to join in 30 minutes.
In
Sorry.
30 minutes.
Yeah, he just told us.
Okay. So I'll give a little bit of an update here, and then when Mark comes on, maybe we'll give him the opportunity after the presentations. But if you've been following us on socials, you'll notice maybe about a month or two ago, we had our first NetDevOps Days in London. As a single day event where we had, I can't remember exactly how many presenters we had out there, but really coming in to talk about network automation, net DevOps, and where people see it going, what individuals are out there doing with it in the community. And we're doing that again, and that's going to be in New York this time. So it's on October 25th. I believe it's the 25th. We do have tickets available for that. As part, alongside of that, there's also a live training event that's going to be offered that's going to get into network automation, more of a network automation class. So you'll be working with NetBox and working with Ansible. Actually, Rich Bibby, are you on? I think I may have seen you.
Yes. Hey, Jordan, I'm here.
Could I get you to plug the live training just a little bit, because I know you're very key to that.
Yeah, well, it's actually going to be the training's going to be conducted by Rick Donato. I'm sure most people here are probably familiar with Rick, very well known in the network automation training space, and he's been putting together in conjunction with us a course which is basically a kind of like an introduction, if you like, to certain levels of NetBox, sort of the data model and basic NetBox functionality, but then also taking it quite a step further and getting into, as you say, Jordan, some network automation, looking at things like config contexts and generating device configurations and sort of using tools like Ansible to interact with NetBox and things like that. So really, really interesting course, some fantastic content on there that's it's not just for people that are perhaps not familiar with NetBox. It covers everything. So you'll probably learn some things you didn't know about NetBox and the data model, but you'll also learn some great skills that are easy to pick up with regards to network automation. So really excited about that as well.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rich. Yeah, so that's the short update in there. Hopefully Mark comes on and he can talk a little bit more about it for us, but let's go ahead and keep moving along. Jeremy, you have a recap for the event that you recently went to.
Yeah, so for anyone who's not aware, there's an organization called USNUA, that's the US Networking User Association. that hosts a bunch of regional meetups for network engineers around the country. They have roughly one per state, I think is kind of the end goal. It's been around, I think, for a couple of years, but this is my first time attending one. They had the inaugural meetup for North Carolina in Charlotte last week on Thursday. So I was able to head out there, and they had a great showing. I think it was about 40 people or so. With a combination of talks and roundtable discussions. The event was about 3 hours. I had a room at a bar, and very, very kind of casual, friendly atmosphere. A lot of great discussion. It's a great opportunity to pick the brains of your fellow network engineers and operators. Had a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to the next one already. So this one was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I believe the next one in my region, at least, is they're targeting Raleigh sometime in February. But there's a bunch of these coming up. So if you go to usnua.com and you scroll under upcoming events, you see we've got them coming up for Missouri, Minnesota, Kansas, Georgia, and this is there's a whole bunch of lineups. So odds are there will be one in if you're in the U.S. at least. You probably have one coming up in your area sometime in the near future. And if not, if you're interested in helping arrange events like this, reach out to USNUA. I'm sure they love to have the help, and we do whatever we can to help promote this kind of community involvement.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. I know I've been talking with them about possibly starting one up in Illinois. I'm pretty close to Chicago. They're fun events. I can definitely vouch for them. There's one in Indianapolis not too long ago that I went to, and it's fun to human network at events like that, but not necessarily have the the largeness of a Cisco Live or something like that.
Yeah,
where it's a little more intimate, and it's people generally in your area. So they're, like I said, good human networking events as well.
Yeah, and it's all about striking that balance, right? You want to have them be large enough that there's enough diversity in terms of people coming, and that you have at least a few dozen people show up at the event, but without it being too large, right? Like a lot of people that I talk to, I would estimate maybe a third to half the people probably drove in like I did from out of the area. They weren't Charlotte natives, or they were on more like the outskirts. It might have been an hour plus drive for them. It's about 2.5 hours from Raleigh. But people will make the drive, and I think with little regional events like this, they can hop around, sort of like NANOG does nationally. NANOG will hop around different areas of the country, and Canada as well. Regional conferences like this for larger states might alternate. Like in North Carolina, it'll ping pong between Charlotte and Raleigh, I would assume. But yeah, check it out. See what pops up near you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. And then kind of a little bit on the other end of that, the smaller meetups, the larger meetups are fun and important and out there as well. So ONUG is coming up October 24th and 25th in New York. NetBox Labs I don't know I think they call them sponsors, but will be a sponsor there. Have a table, and I'm not sure if it's a table in a booth or it's a booth. It's something along those lines. But wherever you see all the other vendors and sponsors, we'll have a table up there. You can stop in, say hello. I know from the NetBox Lab side, we'll have a decent representation there of people who are local to the area. So if you're going to be in ONUG at the front of that week, and NetDevOps Days will be at the end of that week, you could have a pretty jam-packed week of human and computer networking fun.
Yeah, we've got the ONUG is the 24th and 25th, and then I believe NetDevOps Days is the 26th. So ONUG will run Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we have DevOps Days on Thursday.
Yep, perfect. All right, 3.6, it's out. It's real. I think we even have a patch for it now.
Yes, that's true. Yep. So just a reminder, NetBox 3.6 was released at the end of August, a couple weeks ago. Great stuff coming in this. What we've done is moved a lot of the back-end administrative functions are now moved to the proper front end, and ahead of us getting ready to remove the Django admin UI in NetBox 4.0, which we're currently planning to release in December of this year. Bunch of other cool little stuff in there, like configurable default permissions, user bookmarks. You can go through and bookmark your favorite objects. or maybe not your favorites, but things that are more pressing, I guess. We've improved the way custom field choices work and some other stuff. Check out the release notes. Like I said, it's been out. 3.6.1 is out, and we'll probably have 3.6.2 out probably sometime this week.
Yeah, that's great. I've been messing around with the bookmarks a bit. It's that's definitely a request I've seen out in the community for people who are using NetBox, and you don't always need to use the entire UI or the entire application. You sometimes have those areas that you're frequently in and out of. And I can keep my bookmarks elsewhere, but it is nice just to hit the UI and then have like my very NetBox specific bookmarks in there. So I really like that addition.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, so we've got the 4.0 release currently scheduled for December. That will hopefully entail migrating your GraphQL API from Graphene Django to Strawberry. I didn't pick the name. But that's something that's underway. We're currently evaluating the feasibility of making that switch for various reasons. We're planning to overhaul the UI, and there should be some pretty major changes coming. So we're going to see where it stands as far as resourcing and timing. We don't want to rush it. If it comes to it, we may end up bumping 4.0 by another release cycle. As a reminder, NetBox goes through a minor release every 4 months. So typically that ends up being April, August, and December of each calendar year. Right now, we're going to try to get 4.0 out in December, but depending on the level of effort required to refresh the UI and how many road bumps we run into with the GraphQL stuff, that might end up getting bumped. It's still still up in the air for now.
That's awesome. Any one specific feature that you're really looking forward to in 4.0?
I think the UI refresh. I think I'm really eager to do that. We've had we did great with 3.0 a couple of years ago now. It's been probably close to 3 years. I'm not sure. Moving to so the plan right now is to move to the Tabular UI framework, which is a lot more. It's built on Bootstrap, which is the CSS framework that the NetBox and many other applications use as well. But Tabular is a specific theme that goes on top of that will help us, I think, design better for. It's geared toward like dashboard type applications like NetBox specifically, rather than being a general purpose framework like Bootstrap. So I'm hoping that will allow us to rip out a lot of the cruft that has accumulated over the years and have a more cohesive, consistent design application wide. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm looking forward to translations.
That as well. Yeah, that's another big one. Now so I'll caveat that we introduced support for translations under the hood in NetBox 3.6. So it is technically there. We just don't have the mappings added to the project yet. So we're going to be working with some of our advocates, like Renato has volunteered to do the Portuguese translation. We might pick up one or two others for this first round. It'll be a little tricky because we're going to be inventing the process as we go, as a kind of a trial and error effort. But once we've got that settled in, the plan is to obviously introduce translation for as many languages as we can.
Yeah, it's what's the saying? It's like building the plane as you're flying it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
I mean, we're clearly not the first people to attempt this, right? But it's morely, it's not so much of a technical concern. It's more of figuring out what workflows make sense. At what point do string maps get updated and so forth. So I have no doubt that we can accomplish it. It's just a matter of getting that process figured out and documented.
Yep, that's great. Awesome. So that runs us through. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Rich. That runs us through the community news portion. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentations. We have 2 live presenters today, Palmer and Alex, be giving us some updates. Then we have a pre-recorded demo here from Tony Nealon, which if you've paid attention through the socials out there, you may have seen the NetBox plugin bounty program. Tony claimed that with his plugin, or the first one, I should say, with his data center floor plan plugin. So we're going to hold the video demo of that till the end, but we'll go ahead and let's Palmer kick us off. and give us his updates on Cisco and NetBox compatibility. Palmer, feel free to take her away.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Hi, everyone. My name is Palmer Sample. I'm a developer advocate with Cisco Learning and Certifications. So when, I was approached about, presenting something for the community here, we started talking about like maybe Cisco updates, things like that. But so I'm gonna change a little bit, Jordan, on you here last minute, because nothing says surprise like a live demo.
Go for it.
So we just had another class last week. So for those of you that don't know, I teach network automation and programmability, to our customers. And every single time this comes up, every time we have a class, inevitably the conversation starts talking about, event-driven automation and sources of truth. How do we keep all of these different sources of truth? If I have a controller-based network, I don't know all of the different vendors, options here, but like with Cisco, we have ACI or, software-defined access. If I have multiple controllers, each one of those is supposed to be a source of truth. So which one is the real source of truth? And of course, that usually ties into, well, let's look at NetBox. And then it comes into, well, how can we tie this in to really optimize our workflow? So when I was a customer about 2.5 years ago, one of the things I did was tie in our ITSM system. And this is a common ask. And a lot of people have not seen this, or they're not really familiar of like, how can we tie in our ticketing system with some type of source of truth and keep everything in sync? So I figured I would just kind of run through a lab here that we created, if I can figure out how to share my screen. And the cool thing is, once again, since it's a live demo, you get to see one of my components break because I'm apparently using an outdated container, but that is all good. So I'm going to look through the workflow real quick. And by the way, this code is available on GitHub. I can publish that or send that out later if needed. But we're going to create a ticket in an ITSM system. And we're going to use WebEx to actually send an adaptive card. Now, this is a Microsoft adaptive card standard. We're just going to send the data to WebEx for an approval workflow. This, of course, could be your change management process through your ITSM, whether it's ServiceNow, whatever you use. And if it's approved, then we want to use that data that was set in that ticket to actually update NetBox. And based on that, then we're going to configure the device. So notice we're not going to configure the device and then update NetBox. So actually, we're going to have a few webhooks here. It's going to be a ticket to a webhook. Once it's approved, then WebEx will send a webhook back to us. We'll send that data to NetBox to update an interface. And then that will trigger a webhook back to our Flask application that will actually configure the device. So if everything works right, at least 90% of it, then I'll be happy. So here we've got I just created this, I just, built a container using an open source ticket system. I think this was based on OTRS or something. I think it's called Zamad. But I created this network device change template. And this is a common workflow, right? Anytime we have to make a change in the network, it has to be documented in the ITSM. Or if you take this one step further, then, by the way, here I'm selecting the target device. I have a NetBox programmability and automation demo. It's a Catalyst 8000. But in your real life, you get these tickets and nothing says excitement like you're focused intently on one project and a ticket comes in saying it has to be done right now and you have to drop everything. So that's really the goal here with event-driven automation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Gigabit Ethernet 2 on this device. And I should have a keyboard that functions, but apparently that's not the case here. So we'll pull up our terminal. So let's take a look at the interface gig 2. We do have a description. It just says interface description demo. So I'm going to say configured for the NetBox community, if I can spell that properly. Some of these options here, like switch port mode, access truncator 3, it's not going to be applicable because we're dealing with a router. But when I create this ticket, then we should have our Flask app running. And you can see we actually got some information. We got a 422 error from our ticket system because apparently I'm using the wrong version. But we actually got a change management card. And if you see it says Cisco Live US 2023, we created this about 4 months ago for Cisco Live. But this comes up again every training. And here we've just got the basic information from the change ticket, the device, the interface, what's going to happen. And it's gigabit Ethernet 2 on NB Panda demo. So if we take a look at our NetBox instance, we have Panda demo here. And let's go take a look at gig 2. Right now, it just says interface description demo, management only, it's enabled. That's fine. Well, let's go ahead and approve this workflow. So when we approve it, then now we should start seeing some fun things happen back in our Flask app. We have the ticket number. We've hopefully sent the information to NetBox, which we'll find out in a second, and then it's going to configure the device using netconf via Jinja 2 template. So you can see our payload here configured for the NetBox community. It is not shut down. It has an MTU of 1500. Take a look at gig 2. Hopefully it has an updated description. Configure the NetBox community and gig 2. So we can actually use this as an event-driven automation workflow. And again, this is not a lot. There are people out here that are doing this currently, but there are some people that just say, "How do I do this? What is this?" And there's one secret sauce that we use on the back end here. And really, I wanted to also kind of promote this, but there's a Python package called Pydantic. And if you haven't heard of this, it's a data validation or a data modeling library for Python. And you can see we can actually define our data model here of what every field should be. I can take the NetBox webhook data or anything coming in from that adaptive card, send it through this model, and no matter how big of a payload, how much JSON I send through this model, what I'm going to get back is exactly what I defined in the model. And each one of those fields is actually going to be cast to that data type. So a ticket number, in this case, it's going to be a string because it's not necessarily an integer. Device name is a string. So the nice thing is I can take all of these different webhooks, send it through these different models. Here we've got one for the adaptive card just as a demo. We can send it through these models, guarantee that the data is accurate, and we can actually perform validation on that data. We can, set lists of VLANs, things like this, generate it so that we know every single time we get a webhook that data is going to be accurate, and we can send that to the next thing without worrying about some exception. Excuse me, I have not had enough energy drink. An exception being thrown, or worrying that our data is going to be of the wrong type. So really, Pydantic is the secret sauce, but using those webhooks is going to tie it all together. And so that's how you can start looking at event-driven automation for your workflows. So I just thought I'd do a little demo there. Now that you've seen my 422 errors and my incorrect API calls, but that was really what I wanted to talk about today, Jordan.
That's awesome, Palmer. Can you mention again, so that back-end system that you had there, the ticketing system, did I hear that correctly, that you developed that off of something else?
Oh, hold on. Is it this that you're talking about?
Yeah,
this is actually, I think it's called Zamad. Let's see. I always forget branding. Yes. It's a ticket system called, here we go. Zamad, Z-A-M-M-A-D.
Okay.
But what we did here is just because anytime you do, and I used another one called Jira when I was a production engineer.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have to make sure is that anytime you give someone an option to put something in, for example, if it's an interface description, that's great. You can have a free text field. But if it is, I was trying to look for our template here, but that's okay without going through this whole UI. Anytime you have some type of a ticket system where, people can select, then that's going to reduce your error also. So, whether it's selecting an operating system for a virtual machine, selecting an interface for a device. And what we would actually do in a production workflow where we had more than one device is we would tie in that hook so that, hey, when I go to select this device, then get those interface names and show me those interfaces so I can select that instead of typing gigabit Ethernet 101, because, someone is going to make a mistake or misconfigure the management interface, things like that.
Okay. So that we're talking about basically an ITSM practice there, or workflow in there. So that could be really any system. It could be ServiceNow. You mentioned Jira earlier, or whatever you may have out there, as long as you've got some APIs you can interact with.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, you build one application, right? You start small and build it up. And so when I was, the thing that killed me, well, it got me every time, was that I had to drop everything and create virtual machines. It's like, this is an hour, I'm going to have to manually do this. So we actually created this system so that with Jira, someone would send in a VM request. It would actually build out a dynamic Ansible playbook, update the ticket, which of course, what's that do? Stop the SLA. So now I don't have to go into the ticket system and reply. It sends a message via WebEx, Slack, whatever you've got, telling the person that requested, hey, your VM is being built. And then go ahead, build a VM. And when it's done, say, okay, your VM is ready to go. Here's the IP address, close the ticket. So you don't even have to do anything in the ticket system anymore. And now you have free time back in your day to actually stop getting interrupted and focus on your projects.
Right. That's awesome. So if anyone out there has any questions for Palmer, feel free to go ahead and come on mic, put them in chat. That works as well. But if not, I'll give it a couple seconds. Awesome. Thank you, Palmer. I appreciate you coming on and giving us that update and showing us the cool stuff.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Alex.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and have you kick off with your update.
Sure thing. So I'm Alex Gittings. I'm currently a solution architect at IP Fabric, and we have developed a plugin for our customers for NetBox. So hopefully you can see my screen. Yep, awesome.
Coming through.
And what we do is, I won't talk much about IP Fabric, but essentially we discover the network and provide kind of a live documentation of what the real estate of the network is configured as. That's from operational and configurational state. Now, a lot of our customers are on that kind of automation journey and using a multitude of platforms to base that automation off. And a key tool in the chain is to use NetBox as a source of truth to kind of declare intent and then push that intent to a device based on configuration, templates, etc., based on NetBox configuration. We have developed a plugin that allows you to sync. Firstly, if the customer doesn't have NetBox, it allows the customer to get onboarded and use NetBox faster. And the second part is that if they already have a populated NetBox, what is the actual configuration of the network estate and how does it differ to what is configured in the NetBox estate? So the plugin I've demonstrated before, but it's come on quite some leaps and bounds, and we're releasing it next week. So it'll be good for people to look at the source code if they want to look at how the plugin is built. But we leverage heavily the functionality of the staging API that was built in 3.5 something. And I'm currently running 3.6.1 here. And we are using it to propose changes to NetBox so that we can see what is different between the actual state and the configured intent in NetBox. Our plugin is quite simple. You can add multiple sources of IP Fabric. So some of our customers have multiple different instances. And think of IP Fabric could be swapped out with another platform. I'm kind of leaning towards utilizing some of the functionality as like a kind of vendor agnostic sync system, which could be developed in future as a separate plugin. But we can add multiple instances of IP Fabric instances. We have an API key, yada, yada, and we can press sync. And what this does is it just pulls the snapshots from IP Fabric. We're a snapshot-based platform. So we pull the different snapshots that are available into NetBox. You get some nice logs here, and then you'll have a table full of the available snapshots. Now, what's important is this didn't synchronize any data. It just showed what snapshots are available in NetBox, and we've put them into a custom table with the plugin system. And that's important so that we can have some cool like interactivity on the NetBox forms. We have this ingestion page, so we can create an ingestion, and we can name different types of ingestion. So I'm just going to call it NetBox demo. You can select the source. So obviously, you can synchronize from different sources. You can select the snapshot we'd like to select from IP Fabric. I'll select this one here. And because we synchronize those snapshots, it makes that UI quite snappy. It's loading from the database rather than live pulling over the API to our product. As well as the sites, we're getting all the sites dynamically as well. So I can select a site here. Let's select the MPLS. And then we have some different types of synchronization. We can do a DSIM sync. You can select all and select like VLANs, VRF, prefixes. So I'll select those. So you can select what you would like to sync into NetBox. And then also you could schedule it as well. So if you want this to reoccur every 5 minutes, put 5, press save, and it'll do an ingestion every 5 minutes. So I'll just leave that off for a second and then press create. So this should synchronize all those things that I've collected. Now, we've just defined like a job. I'll say it as a job. We've defined a job, and we can press sync on the top right-hand side of this. And that will then queue the process. Once that's started running, we should have a branch that has just been popped up here. So it's live updated. Now, it took me quite a while to figure out the live logs, but we got around it using HTMX and other bits and pieces. So that will continue updating. Now, the most development of the platform has gone around something we're calling transform maps, which is a direct rip-off from ServiceNow's language of transform maps. And the data is the idea of the idea of it is that if you have data in one platform, you need to transform it to be good enough in another platform. So on the left-hand side, this is what our JSON looks like when you look at our API of what an interface looks like, the name, the site, etc. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the NetBox model that accepts some parameters, whether that be the site unique identifier, the primary key field, the MTU, MAC address, etc. And sometimes the data is different in the different platforms. So I've built a transform map kind of layer to the ingestion process, where you can select a source in IP Fabric, a destination in NetBox, and provide a translation between the two different separate models. So if we look at the interface model, for example, interface transform map, you select a source model and a destination model. It's probably a bit small, so I'll zoom it in. And then you can specify in the field maps the source and destination fields. So, for example, this one here, I could specify the int name in the JSON belongs to the name field in the NetBox model, and these are all dynamically populated as well, so you can transform the data as much as you want. Coalesce, what Coalesce does is it says use this field to perform a lookup. So an interface name, for example, is unique on the name, and it's also unique on the device. You can have interface 1 on many devices, but the device is unique as well. So it allows you to transform the data as much as you like, and where it comes into its own is where you have something like MTU, whereas if IP Fabric didn't detect an MTU, you can then do Ginger on that data to provide a default, for example. So you can do some cool stuff in there, like MAC address, for example. In IP Fabric, we show it as the Cisco MAC address, the lowercase 4 digits, dot 4 digits, etc. However, NetBox accepts 2-digit, colon, 2-digit, colon, etc. So you can do some kind of cool stuff. Say, if it exists, transform it. If it doesn't, provide a default. You could do some really clever stuff. And in that ingestion process, it's all finished now. We can see that we've ingested 934 objects, and you can see diffs for them as well. So you can say we would create a site called MPLS, and it shows you the raw data. There's no diff there because we're fully creating the new one. And if you're happy with all that, NetBox is blank, so there's nothing in here. It's all 0. But if you select merge, then after a short little time, while that's going ahead, wait for it a few seconds, then what happens is it will then merge that into the production database so that people can choose what they want to merge and not. And it's really good to show if your production has changed against it. We have customers that are only looking at if there is a diff. They sometimes won't actually ever press the merge. They just want to see what is different between their actual and NetBox state, for example. To refresh that, says completed. So now if we go to devices, we'll see all the devices created. You can see it's got a primary IPv4. We have some custom fields that we populate too, and that's useful because we have buttons that link back to the IP fabric instance, pre-filtered, etc. So pre-filter all that. So we have some custom fields in there, buttons that get added, IP address, all the interfaces, descriptions, everything like that gets added as well. And we even doing things like IPAM, if we go to IPAM VRFs, got all the VRFs, got all the VLANs, the prefixes, etc. Now can kind of simulate a change within the transform map just to show if like a host name would change. So if we just change the device transform map and go to field map and then host name, which is the top one. So I've got no template in here now, but I could do object.hostname name, and then I could do, like, for example, NetBox demo, save, and then what I'll do is I'll just change the ingestion just so it's quicker. So if I like untag these and the interfaces, save, and again, if you don't suggest them, it will do a lookup. If you don't tick them, it won't create them, but it'll first do a lookup first. So if I press sync again, it'll queue the job in the background. This branch will change here automatically. Yes, it has. And then the logs will come in automatically. And the pending things update automatically, all with like HTMX. So we'll see that come in. Then hopefully in the change, we'll show that that transform map has actually translated the data in that Ginger template to how we would like it represented in NetBox. So you can see the progress updating there. There's a few devices to kind of update. It's quicker when we're not doing all the interfaces, prefixes, etc. So almost complete. All done. So we can see we've got 42 changes. And then we can see the new name would now be the hostname -netbox demo. And the diff will show the different kind of the raw serialized data and the diff in red and green. And you can choose to merge that into production or not, depending on your use cases. This main reason for the transform map is that when we were trying this out with the customers, we were prescribing how they use NetBox. Every customer uses NetBox differently. So we didn't want to have to change our source code every time a customer had a different requirement of how they use NetBox. So now this transform map allows our customers to say, I have this data and I want it transformed in this manner, and they can edit the transform map themselves. We provide a default, but they can get going as much as they would like. It's quite powerful. We can also do things like relationship lookups. So I'll just show that. In the relationship maps, we can also do like lookups, for example, by doing raw Django queries within that template. And if it returns like an integer, it will then map it to that primary key. So that's how we determine for example, the site of a prefix. Yeah, that's basically it. Any questions?
No, it doesn't look like we have any in chat either. I really I like how you touched on not everybody uses NetBox the same way. And that's something that we absolutely see. And it kind of gets into, not every network is a snowflake, more or less. It's been designed differently by different engineers over the years. And there are definitely some constructs in NetBox that seem to be consistent version over version, but it's it's good to see that you're all taking in that into account.
Yeah, it was when we first had our original plugin, it was very prescriptive, and every customer were like, can you change this? Can you do that? And to reduce development work, if we have that middle layer, they can choose what they want. And it's using kind of concepts that NetBox uses anyway for things like buttons and other areas, which is the kind of Ginger syntax. So they should be familiar with it.
Yeah, very nice. Awesome. Thank you, Alex.
No problem.
No questions in chat, but if anything does
Awesome.
come up before the end, go ahead, post them in, and
Yep.
we should have some time at the end to bring some of those up.
No worries.
Great. So we're going to go ahead and get into our last demo here, which is that video demo of Tony Nealon and his work on the data center floor plan plugin. Maggie, I think you're going to handle the screen share on that for us. So if you don't mind.
Yep, I can do that. When I'm getting this pulled up, should we have Mark talk about NetDevOps Days since he's joined?
Yeah, if he's ready, go ahead, Mark. If not, we'll catch him at the end of the demo.
No, I'm here. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Jordan. And amazing presentations. Thanks, Palmer, and thanks, Alex. Yeah, so you heard a little bit about NetDevOps Days at the beginning of the call, apparently. I joined a little bit late. Apologies for that. Essentially, everything is now hotting up. So if you're in the New York area or if you fancy a trip out, I would recommend coming along. If you're hearing about NetDevOps Days for the first time, you can go to netdevopsdays.com, click on the London event, and you'll be able to see all of the talks that happened last time that will give you a really good approximation of the type of content you can expect. All sorts of things about network automation, a few talks about the cultural side of this and how to get companies to embrace these kind of practices, a few mentions of NetBox in there, but also lots of other very interesting tooling that could be interesting for you. If you need any help convincing your boss to pay for a ticket, drop me an email on netdevopsdays@netboxlabs.com, and I will come up with a whole script for you. Looking forward a little bit, we very excitingly have started announcing talks today. If you go to netdevopsdays.com and click on the New York event, which is the one on the left, you'll see the first talk that's come through. We're very pleased that two of our sponsors, IP Fabric, with Pete Crocker, one of Alex's colleagues, and also Nokia, or Nokia, depending on where you're from, somebody from there called Jared Girth are going to be giving a joint presentation all about pre-change testing, a full run through the theory, and also some very specific actions that you can learn from and take away about a specific tool that we love at NetBox Labs called Container Lab, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We expect to release more news about the rest of the agenda over the coming days. There's a couple of early bird tickets left at $99, and after that, it jumps up to $199. So get in quick if you want to come. And I look forward to seeing you all there. If there are any questions, like I said, the email address is netdevopsdays@netboxlabs.com. Any questions you have about tickets or the lineup or getting there or convincing your boss or whatever it is, just drop it in and we'll help you as much as we can. Thanks, Maggie.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
All right. Get that last presentation going.
Okay, it's gonna be issues. Let me try one more time. And let me know if I'm not.
Hi guys, Tony Nealon here, T-Bot NZ. Today I'm going to be demonstrating NetBox floor plan plugin. So essentially NetBox floor plan is a plugin that for NetBox, and what it does is it allows you to map a data center floor plan and relate it to a site or a location. So on that floor plan, what you can do is you can draw in the racks at the site or the location, any unracked devices, supplementary objects such as walls, areas, labels, things like that. So I'll just give you guys a quick demo of how it works, and I'll share the link so that you can download it off GitHub should you wish to give it a go. So essentially what you see is in front of me now is a example site I've created for the demo. And from there, once you've got the floor plan plugin loaded, under the site or the location, you'll see this tab here that says floor plan. So if you click into that, what you'll see is this viewing window where you'll see a floor plan. Now, because I don't have a floor plan drawn for this site yet, I'll see a button here to add in a floor plan. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'll just click onto that. And this here is the edit view for editing a site floor plan. So basically what you see on the left here is some controls about adding in objects, unracked devices, racks, and object control. So the first thing you want to do is when you're adding a floor plan is set the dimensions. So for this example, I'm going to go with a 9 by 9 meter room. So I'll just add that in, and now you'll see a outline. Let me just zoom out here of the actual room. So what that allows you to do is basically flag, okay, this is the outline of the room, and then I can start mapping in objects. So the first thing I'm going to do here is add in a wall. It will give you sort of like a base example of what a wall looks like, and then I can choose to add more and more walls in as needed to draw out how the room kind of looks. So let's say I'm happy with the 2 walls there, and now I want to add some kind of area or some sort of rectangle that indicates something on the map. Let's say for this example, it's going to be a raised floor. So I'll go with the color green. And then what I'll do is I might just add a label on there to go and tell people it's a raised floor. So raised floor. And I can see there my, I'll just move that down. Actually, what I might do here is use the object control to just put the raised floor behind the wall, just so there's not that overlap there. Okay, and now what I can do is add in my racks. So if I just add rack 1, and I'll just drag it down here, and then I'll add rack 2, and just drag it there. Okay, and let's say I'm happy with that. These objects can all be rotated. So let's say I want to actually put that other rack over there. And I'll just save it. So now what you can see here is under the site, the floor plan is showing. It can be exported as SVG. The racks or the unracked devices also link through to the respective objects. So if I just click onto that as an example, it will take me through to the rack. The other thing I'd probably mention is that when you're editing objects here or moving them around, keyboard controls are supported. So just jump into pro tips here and it will give you a brief rundown of how to move things with the keyboard. That could be faster if you're moving multiple objects. So yeah, that's the floor plan plugin. Hope you guys like it. Feel free to raise an issue, or if you have any ideas or suggestions for things you'd like to see on it, or open a pull request if you want to add more support for stuff yourself. Thank you. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie, for showing, for kicking that off. And if I had to guess, he wasn't available because he wasn't ready for the thousands of questions that were instantly generated as I was watching that demo. So hopefully we can get him on at some point where we can lob some of those at him in real time. Very cool. And yeah, as Mark mentioned in chat there, that was the first contribution from the bounty the plugin bounty program that we have out there. And that was the first. So I know we won't be done with those. There's a good sum of money set aside. So follow us and pay attention to when those next ones come up. And hopefully somebody out there has a good idea for another plugin.
Yeah, I dropped the link to the plugin ideas forum or board in the chat. It's plugin-ideas.netbox.dev. There's a bunch of plugins up there right now. One of them has an open bounty. I forget offhand which one it was, but we're looking to identify other open, or to assign bounties to other ideas as well based on community feedback and interest. Tony got snagged the first one. It's $2,000 USD, and we're going to continue paying them out because it's a great way for us to reward people who are working on contributing to the NetBox community and to the application. And at the same time, filling the needs and meeting the demands of the community itself.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. And that really runs us to the end of our scheduled time. We have a few minutes left, so just thanking everyone real quick, especially Palmer and Alex. Thank you for showing up and giving us your presentations. Tony, if you do watch this back, thank you for sending the video in. We do absolutely appreciate it. If anyone has any questions for the presenters or would like to come on and just bring a topic up, feel free. If not, we can go ahead and wrap just a couple minutes early here, but we'll just open it up to anyone who may want to speak up. Yeah, I agree with you, Andrew. The idea to put an image of an underlaying image would be really nice. I've had a lot of data center floor plans that are just, okay, here's an empty box and here's where HVAC is, and then you have to draw your own racks in. So that would be a really good add-on to that plugin. No doubt about that. All right, going once, going twice. All right, then we'll go ahead and officially wrap up and end our recording. Anyone who would like to stick around to chat a little bit afterwards, please feel free to do so. But thank you again. I believe we're scheduled out for the next events in October already. Maggie, do you know what that date is off the top of your head?
I'm pretty sure it's October 19th, and then we have November 21st as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have those next ones coming up. If you'd like to be a presenter, you have something to show off, please feel free to reach out to us. We are always looking for people to come on, present. You don't always have to have designed a plugin or your own ticketing system. Sometimes if you just have a neat trick, a neat thing that you've learned, let's say you started picking up the built-in Jinja 2 templating inside of 3.5 and you're just impressed with your own work and you'd like to brag about it a little bit, we're looking for those presenters as well. So please feel free to reach out and we would love to have anyone on to chat about NetBox. But until